Who's taking care of your husband?
I don't know. He could be dead.
Have you talked to him?
No.
What's his take on all this?
Well, he's worried about himself. He's dying, and there's nobody there for him.
What's wrong with your husband?
He has kidney cancer, his kidney stones in the other kidney. He has a blockage between that and his pancreas. They think the cancer spread to his pancreas. He has a leaking heart valve. He has ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. He has skin cancer.
Russ, how old is he?
70.
Well, in the beginning of this road, we made it to where you would not go to jail and you were going to take care of him.
I know.
Unfortunately, the only thing that is going to speed this up is if we get guilty verdicts or guilty pleas.
Welcome to the final episode of Operation Stolen Base, Chapter 8, Game Over. Cliff's father, Frank, is still back in Las Vegas, terminally ill, with no one to take care of him. Cliff believes Frank's health is being leveraged against him by the prosecution. With his bond raised to $500,000 and his mom held in jail, they know he has no choice but to accept their deal so that Rose can get out to take care of Cliff's dad.
Let me back it up. Was he aware of the memorabilia fraud?
Just let me collect my thoughts for a second here. I mean, there was no way of not knowing what was going on with the autograph business, because once I moved them out to Vegas, my first couple months living in Vegas, I lived with them. Not that he wasn't aware beforehand when we were living in Youngstown, but it's just in his face, so, but with my father, it was never talked about.
I don't think we had much of a conversation with Frank. He was really too sick and didn't want to get him more upset or sicker or anything else, because with all his internal problems, any anxiety would only made it worse.
Whatever the morality of it, I guess, or legality of it was never discussed. It's what I did, and that's what I did to take care of the family in a lot of ways.
I'm just worried about my dad right now. That's all. I don't know why his phone wouldn't be on. It's not even like I need to talk to him. I just want to know everything's all right. So I don't know.
Have I talked to you? Did you know that he went to emergency?
No.
Okay. Wednesday or Thursday last week, he went to emergency. He was weak. His legs were weak, and so he called an ambulance, and they came and took him. He was in the hospital for, I guess, for a day and a half, maybe 2 days, and then they released him. But he's more concerned right now because he got a letter that they were going to shut the electric off tomorrow.
Sitting behind bars over 1,800 miles away, Cliff worries about his dad until he's finally able to reach him over the phone.
Hey, can you hear me?
Just barely.
How you doing?
Who is this? EJ?
Huh?
Who is this?
Cliff, your son.
Huh? Cliff?
Yeah.
How did you be able to call me?
Just don't worry about it.
Well, things are hell here. You have the damn bills are piling up and stuff. I'm trying to do the best I can with it. Are you doing all right?
I'm fine, okay?
You sure?
Yeah, Percy's trying to get me out next week, but I don't think I'll be able to come back to Nevada. Here, I gotta go. I'll call you again tomorrow when I have more time, okay?
Okay, I love you.
I love you too, alright?
Okay, bye-bye.
Alright, bye.
Cliff's attorney, Percy Squire.
One of the things that was motivating Cliff was his father was very ill, and his dad was back in Nevada. And the case was requiring Cliff to stay in Ohio, and then there was the issue with his mother was also a defendant in the case. She was used in the case in order to coerce Cliff to plead. They pressured him.
If my mom doesn't get out, they're going to lose the house. Like, because if my
So what do you think? Your mom would be okay with you taking a 4-year deal, or for you guys to just wait it out until trial? She'll be out eventually.
I mean, she would tell me to wait, but
I know she would.
I'm probably more concerned about my dad than she is. He shouldn't be living alone. Like, can't take care of himself.
What are you thinking?
Unless I can get somebody to go take care of my dad. Either I get somebody in Vegas to take care of my dad, or I don't have a choice. I'm not just going to leave my dad there.
So you're given an ultimatum. Plead guilty to these 8 felonies or your mom stays in jail.
Yeah, absolutely. And that ultimatum didn't just come from Marty. You know, my mom had heard Judge Sweeney say that she's sick of this case and that she can just sit in jail, speaking about my mother.
You know, I'm in a room in the courthouse. She walks through the hall saying, I don't care. I'm tired with this case. She could sit in jail.
Cliff would not have done this if they hadn't put his mother in jail, was my impression. It was a wrap at that point. When they put his mom in jail, I think he was going to just do what he needed to do.
The final plea negotiations, I sit down with Marty. You know, basically it comes down to my mom gets out of jail. I get out of jail awaiting sentencing, which is all based around going home to see my father. You know, it's back to the original plea deal from almost 2 years earlier. 1 count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity in exchange for a plea deal to 3 to 7 years. The next morning I show up in court and, you know, once again, pretty standard to negotiations with Marty Desmond. I show up and I have Percy Squire tell me that we have a problem, which is basically I have to plead guilty to the additional 7 felonies.
Once again, Marty Desmond.
We're in the courtroom, and after a while of just hearing his lawyer and him just chirping, I turned to my co-counsel. I said, I'm done. Let's go. So I grabbed my jacket, I put it on, I grabbed my bag, and I'm walking out, and his lawyer says, hey, boy, where are you going?
That is laughable. Now, I called him boy. That's laughable.
I don't like when lawyers make things personal. Percy made things personal.
I had nothing against him. I didn't even hardly know Marty, so I didn't make it personal. But on the other hand, I did not want to just ignore the fact that I felt like he violated Cliff's rights when he said he confessed, nor did I think it was appropriate for him to use these. I didn't think he should have put Cliff's mother in jail. I thought that was awful. And that was done strictly to pressure her, to put pressure on Cliff. For him to retaliate against her because he didn't like what he thought she was going to say if he put her in the grand jury room, I thought that was terrible, especially knowing that his father was terminally ill. That was a violation of his rights. So when you say you make it personal, I have to say who violated his rights. And of course I'm trying to get my client a better deal. But I had nothing against Marty, like I said, and I never say that I would, listen, I'm in a courtroom in Mahoning County. Everybody in that courthouse is white. I'm the only black guy in there. And I guess I'm going to sit down in Judge Sweeney's courtroom and call some white guy boy. That defies credulity. That doesn't even make sense. That makes me think Marty's not truthful.
What happens as soon as he pleads then, as far as his mother goes?
Oh, they let her out. Once he agreed to plead, they let her out.
Again, without a probation violation hearing. Again, my mother never went in front of the judge, sat in jail for over 2 months on a probation violation, and never saw the judge once. She gets out the next morning after I plead guilty.
The concern was that if we let her out and we go to trial, she's going to be gone. And then we're going to be stuck at trial waiting to call her as a witness, and she's nowhere to be found. And that's common. Listen, that's what's done in most cases. In fact, in most cases, when she initially pled guilty, she would not have been released. And so it's not uncommon for a witness or defendant who agrees to cooperate to remain in jail until the case goes to trial. There was no need for a trial because he pled guilty. Well, once he pleads guilty, we don't need her anymore as a witness, and so there's no reason not to allow her out.
Let's hear from Detective Brian McGivern.
I don't think his mom was used as a bargaining chip. She had an attorney. She got legal advice to what she was doing. She admitted that, in an interview, yes, this is what I'll testify to. And then she later backpedaled. And we were trying to get her, just tell the truth. We don't want to send you to prison.
Why do you think she didn't cooperate?
She wanted to protect Cliff.
You a parent?
I am.
Do you relate to that at all?
No, because I don't commit crimes with my kids.
Did you want to send Cliff to prison?
For what he did, yes, he needed to go to prison.
What's your emotion? Are you defeated? Have you lost? Have they won? What's going through your head?
At that time, December 2016, there's really so much going on with my father's healthcare and the decline of his health. I'm really just concerned with getting home and kind of seeing my father. I get released awaiting sentencing. They reinstate my original bail. Coincidentally enough, contrary to what Marty had previously said, he now goes in front of Judge Sweeney and says I'm not a flight risk and I've given him no problems through the duration of the case and that I should be released, which obviously flipped from 2 months earlier.
When was the last time you saw your father?
I get home sometime mid-December. Not long after that, my father goes back into the hospital, to which he never returns from. When people talk about death or what it looks like people just imagine a funeral or a casket or something like that. That's not what this was. It's tubes going in and out of every orifice of someone's body. It's his legs and his arms being so swollen and full with pus that it's actually oozing out of his pores. It's his hair falling out and his eyes rolled back in his head and blood clots in his leg to where his foot had turned black and would have needed to be amputated. There's images in my head that I'll never shake. Because I watched my dad die for 70 days. There was a point in time where he gave up because I asked him if he was ready to come home. And he just shrugged his shoulders. And I knew he wasn't. We had to make the decision to take my father off life support. And when we're making the decision, the doctor kind of tells us that he'll just kind of fade off, over the next hours or even days. But it'll just be a slow process. So we make the decision, and we're sitting there, me and my mom, and I have his hand, and I don't know why, but when they took him off life support, I felt for his pulse in his wrist, because I just hoped that when they took him off life support, that he had a little bit of fight in him, that he was still going to try. Like I said, they said it would be hours or days. It was like 4 heartbeats. Like one heartbeat further away from the other, more faint than the one before. And I felt my father's last heartbeat in my hand.
Do you remember what the last thing you said to him was?
I remember telling him that I loved him and that I'd take care of my mother. I'm not going to say how much longer my father had because he was in bad health, but this case and the way it was prosecuted played a huge part in his death at the time it came. And that's not okay to use somebody's health in that regard. And that's my problem with Marty and Brian and Judge Sweeney. These people get desensitized to what the justice system is, and it's just like an assembly line of churning out plea deals because everybody can't get to a jury trial or the justice system doesn't work. But what they don't see is that the tactics Marty used was by any means necessary obtain a conviction.
This situation they knew was coming. It's not the situation where, they're going about their business and everything's fine and happy, and then they get a knock at the door and then they're handcuffed and they're thrown in a jail cell. They knew this was going on. They had been interviewed. Their house had been raided. They knew that this day was coming. They should have been preparing themselves for it. They should have been at the point where, you say, hey, listen, they committed these crimes. They know they got caught. Now's the time when you start trying to make arrangements, atone for what you did. And they didn't do any of that. And so, if you look at, like, say, for instance, Mahoning County, at the time these cases were going on, they had about 1,500 to 1,700 cases a year, 5 courtrooms. So that being said, you can't go to trial on every single case. You just can't. I mean, there's just not a lot of time. And so you do have to ultimately work out plea agreements. Otherwise, the system will just grind to a halt.
If that docket's not moving, you've got speedy trial issues, you've got all sorts of questions. And when someone is pushing back, then there are different things they do to force them to plead. But they're not supposed to do that. But that's what happens. That's the reality of it. Marty is a good lawyer. He's smart. He knows how to engage in this behavior that I'm complaining about. That comes from experience. That comes from somebody knowing how to do their job. That doesn't mean that what they're doing is constitutional.
Walk me through the day of the sentencing.
I'll never forget, as I came into the courthouse and there was a case before us, Detective McGivern comes in and he comes over to the table to shake my hand, and I refused. Percy Squire gave me an opportunity to speak on my own behalf, give an allocution in front of Judge Sweeney before the sentencing. And about halfway through, she cut me off. I was probably 30 seconds into speaking and she cut me off. Read my charges into the record. She hit the gavel on the stand and was gone.
What was your full sentence?
I got sentenced to 6 years on the racketeering charge. All the predicate charges carried either 2 or 4 years and were all ran concurrent for a total sentence of 6 years.
I know people, and I'm sure you know people, that have killed somebody and done less time than Cliff. So why did he serve 6 years?
You talk about people who have killed have done less time. Every case is unique, okay? And so when you get a case and you're assessing what should be done here, you look at different factors. Number one, you look at what exactly the crime is that they committed. Second thing you need to look at is the individual defendants, okay? You look at do they have a prior record? Why did they do what they did? What are the chances of rehabilitation? So all of those factors go into play. The third thing that you need to look at is the strength of your case. That's mainly it. You look at what the person did, you look at the person as a whole, and then you look at your chances of success. In this case, like I said, you look at the act that Cliff did. You look at him as a person, his behavior during this case. Okay, yeah, you give him a little bit of credit because he pled guilty, and that was factored into the recommendation that we made. Then you look at the strength of the case. The strength of the case, we had him. And I think this sentence was appropriate. Are there always going to be fringe cases either way where maybe it was too light or too harsh? Yes. But by and large, you try to get symmetry based upon those 3 factors that I discussed. And I think this was a just outcome and just sentence.
I thought Cliff probably should have done about 12 or 18 months, I thought, given what everyone else did. That's what I believed. The justice system is extremely inconsistent. And despite the fact that there have been efforts made to bring more uniformity in the sentencing, the fact is these vast discrepancies in sentencing occur all the time. And it has to do with just a variety of factors. And one of the main things is which judge you get. Judge Sweeney's pretty tough. That's the reason I was afraid about Cliff getting 30 years or something like that. I'm not saying she would have done that, but what I'm saying is that was the jeopardy he was facing. But these variations in sentencing, there's all sorts of inconsistencies in sentencing. And that's just an unfortunate nature of the criminal justice system.
Chasin Lindsay pled guilty to a first-degree racketeering charge and got probation on the case. Dan Marino pled guilty to a first-degree racketeering charge, got probation. Joe Malachek pled guilty to a first-degree racketeering charge, received probation. Sean Pello pled guilty to a first-degree racketeering charge, received probation. CJ McCormick got sentenced to 3 years, served 20 months. About a year after his release, I heard that he passed away from a drug overdose. Jason Moore got sentenced to 3 years in state prison, served roughly 18 months. And he's turned his life around and is working construction in Cleveland.
After you get out, what's life like for you?
It was a challenge. It was a huge challenge at first. Suddenly, you have to learn how to live all over again. I got out with nothing. When I say I got out with nothing, I also didn't have anything over my head anymore. I didn't have anything holding me back. And it was very motivating when you get out and you have that new start. It's an opportunity to make something of yourself. You kind of feel like you have more to prove because prison and the stigma that's attached to ex-convicts it's just going to be a huge weight holding you down. But I've, at least personally, I found ways to make it work for me. I have a new girlfriend. I have a newborn son at home, and my life is great. I don't like to live with regrets. I'm where I'm at today because of all the decisions I have made in my life, and I'm very happy with my current family, my newborn son, and my current life.
What happened to the prosecutor, Marty Desmond?
About a month before I got sentenced, the head prosecutor on my case, Martin Desmond, got fired by the prosecutor's office for alleged misconduct. Following his firing, Marty Desmond claimed whistleblower status against the prosecutor's office, filed a civil suit, and settled out of court for $550,000.
I was investigating corruption within the Mahoning County prosecutor's office. We had information and evidence that money from illegal activity was making its way into the county prosecutor's campaign funds, as well as other prosecutors engaging in constitutional violations, civil rights violations. I was pushing for the prosecution of these matters, as well as I reported the misconduct, and it led to the prosecutor terminating me. I sued, and I won. I showed that the stuff that had been said about me was false. I cleared my name. I exposed the rampant corruption by the county prosecutor in his office. And, like I said, we ultimately won the case. And so it was a long fight, but it was well worth it.
Detective Brian McGivern has since resigned from the Canfield Police Department.
According to Brian, it was more of a medical retirement. He ended up taking a job at a law firm investigating accidents.
FBI agent Anthony Sano, I actually heard about his passing during the COVID pandemic.
How about your mom?
She was probably a wreck, but somehow with everything going on, just lost her husband, just lost her son. I just remember her being there for me and telling me that it'd be okay and that she was going to be okay. July 4th, 2022 will be the first time I see her in over 5 years. It's not real yet. Probably won't be real until I'm on the plane, so.
All right, Cliff. The last time we talked to you, you had something around your ankle. How does it feel to be a free man?
Been free almost 4 months. Life is good. I'm glad to be home, glad to be back in Las Vegas with my family. I don't think it really hit me until my head probably hit the pillow that night and I was kind of by myself going through my thoughts. So it was probably so overwhelming that it took some moments to become real. Did a little drive-by through the Las Vegas Strip just to kind of, just see the lights and really have it hit me that I was home. Since I got out, I was able, with my social media presence and platform and in telling my story, I was able to start the Iconic brand. So the Iconic brand stands for turning cons into icons. So it's all about success in life after prison, becoming a functioning member of society, and, you know, still having big goals, dreams, aspirations. And, you know, I'm about changing the narrative and, you know, raising the bar of expectations for people coming out of prison. As felons, we need to do better, but as society, like, people need to give felons more of a chance. You know, that's what I'm about, is changing that narrative. And again, it's got to change in society too, that they realize people coming out of prison have intelligence and skills and trades and can be productive if given the chance.
Now that he's out, Cliff wants to do big things. It's something, again, I can relate to. Over this past year, as we crafted these 8 episodes, we began looking through old photo albums of Cliff's life. And when you know it, I'm in some of them. Not only did we play against each other in Little League, but we were good enough to make some of the all-star teams where we actually played together. And here we are, 25 years later, teaming up for this podcast. Who knows? Maybe we'll even turn this story into my next movie.
Let's say somebody wants to turn this thing into a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Who plays Detective McGivern?
Oh, man, Mark Wahlberg with his bulging biceps. Yeah, right. There you go.
That's a good one. Okay.
Yeah. Who's playing Marty? Who's the guy? Oh, what's his name? He was, remember Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Rick Moranis?
Rick Moranis can play Marty Desmond. He'll love that.
And the $1 million question, who plays Cliff?
Good God, I kind of comes to mind is the Rock, but he's not cocky enough.
The Rock's not cocky enough?
Yeah, he's got to get a little more cocky.
Brian said The Rock. Who plays me in a movie? I mean, I just have to go with the obvious that I always get, and it's Vin Diesel. Spent 6 years in prison being told I look like Vin Diesel, so if there's someone that's going to play me in a movie, I'm going to say Vin Diesel.
I think Cliff has big things coming for him. He's determined. I mean, he's a hard worker. You know, he'll do anything he has to do to make things work. And I mean, he's a go-getter, but he always has been. Everybody told him when he got out, oh, you'll be back in 3 months. Yeah, life is too precious and important to be wasting it on crap like he went through or getting in trouble or any of that.
I hope he does well. Glad he did his time. He moved out of the prison life and he can move on and hopefully be a successful participant in the community.
I hope he learned his lesson. I hope he stays on the straight and narrow, but his just inability or refusal to accept responsibility are the type of characteristics that you see in somebody who's going to reoffend.
If somebody puts it up on the sports book, the odds that Cliff Panizich goes back to prison.
Well, my odds for success, they got to be about minus 10,000. So I'd challenge anybody to bet on failure.
Thank you for listening to Operation Stolen Base. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping people find the show. This episode was written by me, Johnny Chechitelli. Story editing, mixing, and sound design by Kevin Skubak. Produced by Vince Tornero and myself. And a special shout out to the Vindys for our theme song, Chasin, available now on Apple Music.
That was an amazing podcast from an amazing podcast company in co-production with Wessler Media.